are talking tonight about raising kids who are human. And you're laughing. Which
sounds obvious because they are human.
They are human. Where we got this idea phrase from originally was...
By the way, it's thunderstorming here, so if you hear rumbling, that's what that is.
If they can hear rumbling, that's pretty impressive.
It's loud.
It is pretty loud.
Our
we also
kids might come
have
downstairs.
children getting up.
They're scared of storms.
Yeah.
So.
And we're not sure they're asleep yet, so we'll figure that out in just a minute.
Nope.
But hey, we're talking tonight about raising kids who are human, and we first got this idea from one of our podcasts that we did on... It was called Raising Kids to Be Human, but it was Gabe and Rebecca Lyons.
Is that what we ended up calling it?
It was part of it. But it was Gabe Lyons who talked about it as it related to screens and how he limits screens with his kids. But in the process of that, I think for Christy and I, we've also been just growing in the Lord quite a bit lately, just in terms of our own spiritual growth and development, which has been a really cool thing. And I'm not saying that in like this overly spiritual way. We're just in a season right now, as most of you know, your spiritual development just kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. And I think even in our marriage, it kind of does the same thing, right? Like when you can be distant. Rarely.
Hold on. By the way, say hi and say where you're from.
Oh yeah, say hi and say where you're from.
We haven't talked to anybody yet, so say hi. Can you see
Hi.
us? Is it working?
Where are you from?
Okay.
Or maybe... Nope.
Oh, sometimes it doesn't scroll.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let us know where you're from tonight. Let us know where you're checking in from. And also tell us about ways that we got some likes coming in slowly. If you can, let us know where you're from. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Hi next door. Look at that. I love it. So, wow, it just really started raining pretty hard here. South Georgia and Turtle Lake.
Hi, Aaron.
Do you know?
Hi, Joy.
Wait, Turtle Lake. Where's that?
I don't
Miss
know.
Canadian.
I don't know. Erica.
Aaron, what province?
GQ, hi.
GQ, hey man, how are you?
Heather, hi Heather.
So, raising kids who are human, it's one of those things where, wow, it is really, really raining. Hi from Ontario.
Hi, Trish.
Happy Canada Day to our fellow Canadians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy
cool.
Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day. Saskatchewan up north.
Yes! I love...
Nice.
There's Trent. Oh.
Wow, it is raining. Trent, what time is it there in New Zealand?
Oh, Gina, you're so sweet. Thank you for saying that.
Empty Nester from Florida. Love it.
Okay, so...
Raising kids to be human.
Yes.
It sounds funny because... So anyway, so we're talking about our spiritual growth and development. Rarely do Christy and I experience it. And I don't know if you guys experience it this way too. Let us know. Fill us in. Michelle, also from New Zealand. Look at that.
We need to
New
take
Zealand.
a trip.
Is that New Zealand? NZ? I don't know of any state with New Zealand NZ. So
I'm Canadian. I have no idea. So don't ask
not
me.
Nova Scotia. Anyway, so
Hi, Tiffany.
we
Hi, Lydia.
are. Rarely will Christy.
Looking so cool. Oh, stop.
Rarely will Christy be growing in her faith and me not be growing.
Can you hear that? It's so loud, guys. Sorry, we'll talk louder. You
1:40
can hear it?
p.m. can hear the rain.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is raining hard right now.
Okay, we'll talk louder.
Rarely will you be growing and I not be growing. We find that when we in our spiritual growth and development, usually we're either not doing well together or we're doing well together. And we just happen to be in a season right now where we're doing well together. And I think as part of that, we're discovering our own. Wow,
It's really
it is
raining.
pelting the windows. Like it is raining hard here in Nashville. So I might have to go check. Make sure.
I think it might be hailing.
Yeah. You keep talking. I'll be right back.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's opening the door. I kind of want to show you. Oh, it's totally hailing. Keep it shut. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we're talking about kids, raising kids to be human. So I'm not sure where you were going with your story, but can I tell my story?
Yeah, just the whole idea that it is, I mean, it's really raining. Just the whole idea that we are, I think we're discovering our own humanity in the midst of this. Just our own, just who we are in the Lord and who we are as children of God. So.
Is that where you were going with it?
You go ahead.
Okay, so I was going to go with camping. So, hi, Dr. Dobson.
Family talk.
We went camping this weekend. for the first time with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old in a tent. Like, not like fancy camping.
Like love if you're a fellow camping
Are you campers?
family.
This is like, I mean, I camped when I was like as kids,
Mm-hmm.
but like no trailer camper fancy stuff. Like literally like 4 inches from the
Tents.
ground on a tent. 5 days, 4 nights. It was awesome.
And we did it. We survived. Our children
And
survived.
more than survived, I would say. Like, I mean, we had some moments. Like, there was one, you know, like in the big, like you have to like have a shower, you know, and like shower your kids, and everybody's in there. At least that's how we did it, because our kids are little. And there was an incident with soap, and it got in the eyes, and there was a lot of screaming. Like,
because we usually use kids soap, and we didn't this time.
I don't know. There was a lot of screaming. And I think people thought we were like hurting our kids or something. It was soap in their eyes. I mean, I know it sounded like she was falling downstairs, but she wasn't. Anyway, so other than that moment, that was awful. I almost wanted to call in that point. But it was awesome. And I want to do it again. Like, I'm already looking for like other campgrounds to go to. Truly. Anyway, it was so fun.
Which,
okay.
before the trip, if you would have heard her before the trip,
Do we
you wouldn't
hunt
have heard
rabbits?
that. So
No. We brought a cooler of food is what we did. And actually we went out to eat one night too.
So
that doesn't really count.
So we put together ways we can teach our kids to be
Okay.
human.
But we realized in that there was something so just really human about standing in line to wait for a shower, to making
Be off of screens.
Yeah, being off of screens. I mean, literally
off of
sleeping
screens is a big one.
outside, waking up outside, eating outside. Lightning, also part of that.
We didn't experience that,
We
though.
didn't. It did rain.
Yeah,
It did rain.
But it didn't.
But it was just something that you left feeling you were cold, you were hungry, you were thirsty, you kind of were achy, and you just felt human again. Is that the best way to, like, that's what we just felt was the best way to say it. And we had this conversation, like Josh mentioned earlier. Hi, Vanessa. I miss you. On our podcast, this first season, our first season just ended, Dr. Josh and Christy podcast. So you can go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and check that one out. But this one was with Gabe and Rebecca Lyons. And he just said how it's almost like we have to teach our kids now how to be human because they do this. Like, and they're just being raised in a culture of screens. I mean, we're talking to you on a screen tonight, so it's not like they're all bad. But there's just something about that almost requires us teaching them how to be human.
I personally believe that screens, and when I talk about screens and I speak on screens, and again, I'm not all against screens. We're obviously using them right now for good, and they can be used for good. But I also believe, on the flip side of that, the enemy loves to use them as an opportunity to. It's the most socially acceptable way, I believe, in our culture to distance ourselves from Jesus and distance ourselves from the Lord. And what ends up happening is they become a vehicle for comparison, envy, especially in the parenting years. If you're a mom, I know we've talked about this before, where Christy struggles with comparison, and you look at other families and you're like, man, why aren't we doing that? Or I wish my kids could be that good. Because we don't present ourselves fully human on social media. We present the good stuff. We don't show the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very
It's the
easy.
highlight reel, for sure.
So what ends up happening then is we get clouded. We get clouded with impatience, and we get clouded with things like envy and
greed,
selfishness,
jealousy,
and
selfishness is a huge one.
and then we start thinking that we're the only ones living this way,
Right.
and nobody else is relating to us, and we feel like we're the only ones whose kids aren't listening, or we feel like we're the only one whose marriage isn't going all that well, or we feel, and so what we end up doing is we turn back to the screens, or we give our kids screens so that we can get some time alone, or that we feel like we need to decompress, and so our kids end up with screens more often than we wish they did, and it just becomes this nasty cycle of us just living in busyness. And I think part of being human is also rediscovering our humanity again, is just going, we also need time to take Sabbath. We also need time for rest. We also need time to shut down. And now that it's July and it's the middle of the summer, now's a good time to be doing these things. And that's kind of what we've been doing, trying to do a better job of. That's how I feel lately with my family. Christine. So
Yeah.
let us know. I mean, do you guys feel this same sense? And what does that look like for you? And let us hear that. By the way, we put a feelings chart up there. There's a link to a feelings chart because one of the ways we're going to talk about tonight of teaching our kids or reteaching our kids to be human is teaching them to feel. And so we put our Jane Butler, who is like our amazing graphic designer, put together a feelings chart of faces so that we can teach our kids how to feel and what they're feeling. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you can download that for free and hang it on your refrigerator or put it somewhere in your home. And then also, Christy mentioned our podcast. It's a great opportunity to listen to what we're talking about, listen to us interview people also talking about some of these topics. And so like our Facebook page and follow us there so that, because we keep these things updated all the time there. It's a great place to kind of keep up with that. So our number one way of teaching our kids to be human or reteaching our kids to be human, and my mom just joined, and my mom, we went camping together, and so
she basically saved the day.
Without really Grammy and Pap being there.
I'm making it sound like
we did it, just the four of us. Grammy and Pap were also there to help.
They basically saved us.
So that was awesome too. So
hi, Teresa.
We did it as a family.
Did I say that
so
right?
teaching our kids to be human or reteaching our kids to be human. Number one is get outside. Get them outside, and which is what we did with our kids this weekend. There's so many benefits of getting your kids outside. Physical benefits. I mean, a lot of obesity today is linked to kids not getting outside as much. Is it Denmark that was named the number one happiest kids on the planet? Was Denmark, and there's books out there on it now. And one of the your inner caveman.
Because of this?
I love Trent.
Because of this? Look at this.
So,
I don't think he wants to shave it either.
But one of the key, you tell me I look good with it. So of course, if my wife is telling me I look good, then I'm gonna like it. So
people think he's like 30 years old, or like sometimes in your 20s.
20s. And so it's the one where I can look maybe a little bit like my age.
I think you look older.
Yeah.
So
anyway, there Trent, there's my inner caveman.
He grew he aged a few years.
When I turn off my Wi-Fi, my teen gets stubborn. Yeah, like this, because our kids are addicted to this stuff. And so getting our kids to you're literally retraining your kids' brains by getting them outside. But Denmark, happiest kids on the planet, and one of the greatest strategies throughout that whole process, if you read about it, is that they get outside. They spend more time outside than most kids an
outdoor classroom
on the rest of the planet, and so they're outside.
And then number two, which is similar. So number one, get outside. Number two is work with your hands, because so much of what kids are learning is, I mean, even if we, I mean, and this is all great stuff, but coding. They're teaching kids a lot of coding stuff lately, maths, computer sciences, all this stuff. It's obviously the way the world is going, but we're losing all of the physical, all of the tangible, all of the concrete.
Well, I think it also, and I think it also relates to it. What's fascinating about this, just in terms of working with hands and talking about screens, and if you've watched us at all, you've heard me say this, but I'm going to say it again for those of you who haven't. But the Chief Technology Officer of eBay, as well as executives at Yahoo, Google, Apple, and HP, all send their kids to a 9-classroom school. It's called Waldorf schooling, where technology is completely omitted. And so basically, it's like these tech giants are sending their kids to classrooms that they don't use technology. Steve Jobs didn't allow his kids on an iPad, and Bill Gates only allowed his 3 daughters on the internet for 45 minutes a day. And they weren't allowed to have a phone until they turned 13, and when they did turn 13 and get a phone, they were only allowed to use it as a phone. So my question is, if the people creating these devices are protecting their children, what do they know about it that we don't? And we believe wholeheartedly that it has to do with creativity and imagination, because boredom and allowing your brain to think, it takes 15 to 20 minutes of boredom for creativity to kick in. And so getting our kids to be bored and learn creative activity and getting their brain to settle down into activity is really important, because what ends up happening is you teach kids, therefore, so for instance, one of the things we're teaching our 4 and 2-year-old, which by the way, they'll be 5 and 3 in a couple of months, actually next month. Man, it's coming quick. So, just teaching them to, they'll unload the dishwasher, which is sitting right in front of me, so I'm pointing to the dishwasher. Or we get them to tonight, making sure that they're always picking up all their toys, making sure that they're the ones cleaning up after themselves, giving them chores and watering the plants. They're a part of this family too. And what do I do with the feelings chart? Great question. I'll tell you about that in just a second. So just stay tuned. We're going to get to that one next. And so being parents who, I think it's important that we're parents who give our kids responsibility and teach them to use their hands and to learn hobbies with their hands. Like even one of the things that we've been doing to enjoy life or to be in the present is I've been starting doing woodworking stuff. So shelving and stuff, like just making shelves and doing things here around the house that don't involve my normal work. Doing things with my hands and enjoying that and getting my mind off of what I normally would do is really important. So just teaching our kids to use their hands. Yeah, you're into plants.
This is funny.
I'm not gonna.
Can you see this right here? Hold on. You see the number of plants.
We have plants.
There's a lot of plants.
So.
I love them though, and I've kept most of them alive.
And we have great neighbors who take care of them when we're away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I feel bad.
Did you want to say more about that, hands, or you want to move to the next one?
Well, I mean, I'm going to scroll back here. Hold on one second, because there was a few good comments I just wanted to say.
I'm just going to rub my inner caveman beard while you're doing that.
Okay, you do that. I mean, cooking is one I saw, Oh, yes, losing the ability to learn a trade or create art. Amen. I actually have a friend who started a creative arts class for kids and then also for adults, basically for that very reason, to reteach us how to create with our hands, because I think it's up until the age of 5 is when our creativity peaks, and then for some reason it starts to go down, and it's usually because we're told what to think and we're told how to think. And obviously that's good through education, but we lose our creativity, and so it's sort of reteaching us and reteaching our kids that they can be creative and they can dream. Physically leave the house to go to a part of the woods to explore. I love that. Looks for rocks and gems everywhere. My youngest son. Oh, sorry, Heather. The rest of that cuts off. It doesn't let us read the whole thing.
But I think to Heather's point there, what she was saying, and I think it's important for you to, because it's one thing you talk about is adventure. Heather was kind of talking like adventuring, the kids loving to find gems and stones and things like that. Yeah. Our kids love adventure. Yeah. Oh my gracious. Yeah. Like, what was it that Landon said to me? We were in the tent. Oh, we're in the tent over camping, and I can't remember what it was, but I wanted him to get ready for bed or get ready into bed, and Uno is awesome. Game night, yes. I have some fun game nights too, board games, those things. But so one of the things that I said to Lano, I said something like, "Get your PJs on, or we got to get ready for bed." And what he's doing is he's finding his lantern, and he's like, "No, Dad, Mommy said we can go on an adventure to the bathroom." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, buddy." So he was so excited about going on an adventure to the bathroom. Yeah. And so it was just the coolest thing.
And I think especially for boys, but I think it's so true. I mean, it's true for me. I think it was true for me as a kid. It's still true for me. I think we desire adventure, and I think a lot of our depression and anxiety as a culture is because we don't have it. We live in these safe little
One of my good friends
and we don't go after anything
today,
scary.
Who's the owner of a restaurant here locally. We had him on one of our podcast episodes. He and his family were out this past weekend on a rope swing, and he was showing me the kids in a rope swing.
Are we going to talk about a rope swing?
And
that's hilarious.
And anyway, but he was just saying about how amazing the rope swing was, and their kids just enjoying and getting outside and landing in the creek, and it was just.
Did you
really
bring
cool.
that up for a reason?
No, I did not bring it up for a reason. So we're gonna move on to number 3.
No, we're gonna talk about that.
Move on to number 3.
So we took a boat out one day. And we were on the water for 8 hours, almost 9 hours, and they told us where to find this rope swing. So we go and we find it. And I have a back injury, so I was too afraid to do it. I wanted to do it, but I was too afraid to do it. And our kids were they couldn't have done it. And so this guy...
It was a big rope swing, and it was into a big lake. And I walked up they boated me in, and then I walked the rest of the way to the bank. So, I mean, there was a big chunk of it that I walked that was stones.
Yes.
And so I had no idea where the drop-off was or how deep the drop-off was. It had to be pretty deep. But anyway, go ahead. Say your thing.
No, I'm not. You did it.
Hey, only in Saskatchewan, right?
What?
Aaron, we drove around the country the other night chasing a spray plane. It was so fun.
Oh my gosh. Aaron, you need to go to...
It's so amazing.
Born and Raised, the benefit concert. Is it this weekend?
Shaunavon.
In Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. Our brothers, they're doing, the Hunter brothers, they're doing their benefit concert and they're filming their music video. So you can get tickets, Born and Raised. Who else is going to be there?
We'll put a comment there.
Yeah.
So you can
Oh my
connect
gosh,
to it.
you've got to go.
So
We wish we could be there, but we can't be there. Anyway,
So
back to your story.
Yeah, so number 3.
It took a while.
it did take a while for me to do it.
It took a while.
But I did it. I totally
But you
did
did it.
I totally did it.
And,
We totally did it.
you did do it.
I did it.
You showed our kids what it meant.
To overcome fear.
Yes.
I did.
And
It
then
was
you did it
awesome.
a ton of times. It
was
was that
fun.
first time.
I did it. I kept doing it because it was amazing. It just took me that first time to get over the fear, but I wanted to do it because my kids were watching and I'm like, I gotta show them that I can do this. And it wasn't my inner caveman. It was the idea that I wanted our kids to see what it was like to overcome your fear, even walking through it. So it was
And
good.
then our
It was
kids
good.
are like yelling from the water, like, Daddy, you can do it.
Yeah, so you get that. It was pretty funny. So anyway, so number
you did
3,
do it,
I
and
want
it
to
was
move on
good.
to this one because
Okay,
there's
sorry.
people waiting to hear about
So
this.
sorry.
Teach them to
Okay.
feel. Number 3,
Okay, yeah.
teaching our kids to be human, teaching them to feel, because there's so much about this, and I write it in Safe House, in the book Safe House, and the whole idea that, I mean, the brain chemistry behind all this is powerful, but I think we've lost the ability to know our emotions and know how to feel.
Yeah.
And so that feelings chart right there, you can download that feelings chart. The link is there, and we'll also post it in the comment section after the video. But you can download that for free. So hang it up in your refrigerator, you put it in your playroom or wherever you want to put it. The idea is that we teach our kids when they're throwing a temper tantrum, when they're struggling, it's to take them to it and look at the face and say, tell me what you're feeling. Mm-hmm. What is it that what face most represents the face you're making now? And I mean the physiological ramifications of the brain and how our face is like sad or happy or it's powerful.
But being able to identify the emotion they're feeling and then name it.
And then name it and label it and go, and we do that in our marriage too a lot, where we'll go, I was sad today when, or what I was really frustrated about was.
Or you made me angry when.
Or you made me angry when. Those types of things, labeling emotions powerful, because as a counselor, one of the biggest things working with juvenile delinquents and troubled kids throughout the years is it's one of the, not even juvenile delinquents, any adolescent really.
Yeah.
You really have to sit down with them and give them one of those charts to go, what does this, like, what are you feeling right now? A lot of times kids have not learned how to label or put words to what they're experiencing in their bodies, especially in the first 5 years of life. Kids don't come into this world knowing what emotions are. So that's why you have the quote unquote terrible twos and why you have temper tantrums, is because the brain is beginning to make sense of what's going on in the body, but the body can't figure it out. So the body just throws itself in the ground and just does whatever. Adults don't throw temper tantrums in the way that kids do, but adults who
I was going to say we don't.
Adults who don't label their emotions do it in different ways. We turn to idols. We turn to things that numb the emotion rather than truly trying to make sense and feel the emotion. So those
Screens?
Screens are one of them.
Numb emotion. Yeah.
So teaching our kids to relate by teaching them how to feel is powerful.
Which comes
Leads
into
to the
number
next
4,
one.
which
To
is
relate.
to relate.
So how to relate.
How to be in relationships.
How to be in relationship with people.
Face-to-face ones. Not...
And I think it's really important
although we're kind of
to...
face-to-face.
I think it's
we
really...
can't see your faces.
I think it's really important to... So a big one for this is surrounding ourselves with families that we... that pour into us. So I believe this, and our friends at Grace Church, Southern Pines, actually kind of gave me this analogy, and I love this. it's like a hashtag or a pound sign, depending on the generation you came from. When you look at a hashtag, you put you in the middle of that hashtag, or tic-tac-toe, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. Put you in the middle, and there's three in the 3 boxes above. Put your 3 Pauls, or the 3 families that you look up to, who are pouring into your family, mentoring your family, that you want your kids to be around, that you want your kids to grow up to become or look like. They could be your own parents, so the kids' grandparents. Those types of relationships, put them in the top 3. And then you also have, and I believe we need to have more than this, especially as it relates to
sorry,
friends.
Guys.
Oh yeah, we're not.
We're missing a 10. It wasn't. Sorry.
We'll go back and answer some of these. So then the other 2 would be your Barnabases, those who are like your friends, who build you up, you build them up. There's this mutual edification. So your kids are growing up with their kids and vice versa, but they're families that you love and trust and want to be around. And then those 3 in the bottom are your Timothys. Those are the families you're pouring into. They might not even necessarily be families, but in our case, they're like our babysitter, nanny, neighbor who is
or couples we do
college
premarital
student with. Or couples we do premarital with.
Yeah.
College students who help watch our kids, but we also pour into them. It's those types of relationships. Helping our kids be a part of that is really powerful as they learn who they are in Christ, and then also who they're becoming, and then also seeing how we interact with friends and that type of thing. So teaching our kids to relate. Sorry, I'm going to go back and look at some of these. So helping the child name it helps them work through it. Yes, being able to label it in and of itself is huge for them learning to help work through it. Because, and let me tell you this, this is Robert and Tammy, so it's a great one. Let me just see here. Dr. Meg, strong mother, strong son, so helpful in helping my son with his emotions. Yes, Heidi, we love Dr. Meg. Dr. Meg's amazing. Great book.
Did you hear her? When did her podcast come out?
Yeah, we did her podcast. Her podcast came out just a couple weeks ago. So.
Did you read her new book? It's so good.
Hero. So would be helpful for autism too. The visual aid for feelings. Yes, Heather. So putting language to emotion is really important to help them work through it. So labeling is it's powerful because without going too heavily into the brain chemistry of it, the way that it's described by neuroscientists is that neurons that fire together wire together. So when you're experiencing something in the here and now, a lot of times where there's a disconnect in our lives, especially when we've hit traumatic experiences or crises or that type of thing, is when we can't put language to it, when we don't label it. And the labeling of it, so the right side of the brain is the here and now, it's the experiential, the emotional part of the brain. The left side of the brain is that linguistic language processing where you're putting language to what you're experiencing. And really an integrated brain, as it's described, is a brain that's able to talk about what I'm experiencing. And so a lot of us as parents, we carry fears into our parenting journey because of maybe ruptured relationships with our own parents or that type of thing. For some, the extreme of this would be being abused as a child and not being able to really work through that, which is why counseling is so important later in life, to be able to really put language to what was experienced and being able to forgive, and also being able to realize that you weren't at fault for it. But putting language to that is really powerful, even as adults. And so being able to start that early on with our kids is super helpful for them, because it also leads to the next one. It leads to them to be able to relate well, because they can realize and they can begin to learn, especially as it relates to sibling relationships. And again, this takes time. This is not like, overnight they're labeling their emotions and all of a sudden they're like there. This is a process. This is a lifelong process for all of us. But the more that we can help our kids navigate their emotions, it also helps them to be able then to see cause and effect. So for instance, that when there's a sibling rivalry and I'm just thinking of our own kids, our son, our daughter ends up screaming with a scream that makes you that peels paint off a wall, that our son realizes it's because he took a toy from her, right? And there's a consequence, right? There's a we sow what we reap. There's a consequence for our actions. Our ability to be able to help our kids make that connection is powerful for them to then understand what it's like in relationships, how they're feeling, and then also how their actions are causing another person to feel. So when mom and dad are upset at them for their behavior, they're able to make connections that, hey, it was my behavior that caused my parents to be upset or my mom and dad to be mad. Heather, I can relate to that scream. Sounds like someone's like,
Oh, it's
yeah,
so bad.
it's awful. Her scream is terrible. It's been since the day she came out of the womb. And so the whole piece there is it teaches them to relate. But what it also does is number 5, teaching our kids to be human is the last one, at least our last point. So I'm glad you asked that question, is it teaches them to empathize. Teaching our kids to empathize and step into the shoes of another person. So not only then are they understanding their own feelings, they're also understanding that, hey, listen, my actions are causing another person to feel this way. Therefore, I should act this way to make them feel good, to serve them, to love them, to make my sister not scream, and to make mom and dad not be mad, and to obey our parents, and that type of thing. So it's important to have those in our life who pour into us and our family. I feel like we pour out a lot, and we need to remember we have those who pour back into us. That's super true. So anyway, let me just follow that up real quickly. Be sure.
Melbourne, okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Come see us. We'd love to come to Australia. So be sure to download that feelings chart because that's how you can use it. It's a great way to, it's just a great way to help your kids to label their feelings.
Be human.
And be human. One of the things we do often with our kids is saying, hey, what made you angry today? Or what made you sad today? Or, this is what I was going to say, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. If you've watched us before, you know we promote Daniel. We love Daniel Tiger.
Wait, Jason's in St. Lucia. We should also visit there. Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Jason, we're coming to visit.
Okay.
So
Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
There's so many feelings.
Our kids, when you're feeling sad, talk about it, and you'll feel better.
No.
I don't sing.
No.
But
that wasn't the tune. There's one that says.
But our kids sing them, and they connect to them, and they connect to the feelings and the power of that. What it's doing is it's building their brain. It's teaching them emotion regulation. It's teaching them self-control. It's teaching them all these things. And so it's teaching our kids to be human. So teach your kids to be human. Get outside. Teach them to do stuff with their hands. Give them work to do around the house. Responsibility, resourcefulness.
The difficult thing, though, with teaching kids to be human and really retraining all of us is that it's countercultural, right? Because the culture is going towards, the easy button, right? Like, let's make things as easy as possible. We use Google Maps to get everywhere. We have no idea where we're going half the time in real life, like on a map, an actual map. We just follow whatever it tells us.
Think about how someone else is feeling.
Susie, everyone knows Daniel Tiger. He's amazing. Knowing the feelings and addressing them will keep them up from stuffing. Yes.
Heidi, what it really does is we call it the Therapiggy Bank, that we are raising money for our kids to get therapy one day because we know eventually, somehow or another, as imperfect humans as we are, they're going to need therapy probably. And so the more they can talk about their feelings now, the less money they need out of their Therapiggy Bank and they can put towards their college education. That's the way I view it. So,
speaking of their Therapiggy Bank, which, by the way, we had David Thomas and Sissy Goff on the podcast. That was the last one that released. And
they're coming back on.
They're coming back on. But they're counselors. They work at Daystar Counseling Ministries here in Nashville. If you are in the Nashville area, I'm just going to tell you, the Therapiggy Bank for our children will be going to Daystar because they're the only people we would trust our kids with.
And they have a new book out called Are My Kids on Track?
Yeah.
We'd highly recommend that new book.
Fabulous. But listen to that podcast. Listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
And subscribe to the podcast, Dr. Josh and Christy podcast. Subscribe because they are coming on. I think they're one of the first ones for season 2, which starts, they're not. What are they? Yeah, they are.
It'll be in September. We start again back in August, but I mean, there's 20 episodes there from season
okay.
1
Okay.
that you can go listen to now. So
We'll do
go
that.
listen to those 20 episodes. If you can get through those through the month of July, you'll be in time for season 2 in the first week of August.
Oh,
but
it's the first week of August?
yeah, it's getting ready to start up again.
I didn't know.
We got some amazing guests coming up here in just...
Can I tell them?
No, because we just need to make sure that...
Okay.
No, you can't
The
tell
3
them.
that are... Actually, we're doing them next week. The 3 that I know of. Interviews, you'll love them.
Does this work for your phone?
I don't know.
Thank
That's
you.
okay.
I am also listening to, yes, Dr. Meg's podcast, Parenting
I
Great
love
Kids.
hers.
Listen to that one as well. Therapy Piggy Bank as a professional counselor, I encourage this practice. Yes, Matt. Yes. It's our parental therapy piggy bank. So,
Yeah.
I love it, Matt.
Just inevitable, right?
Yeah. Because one of the things that I'm really talking about teaching responsibility and being human, Matt, you'll appreciate this story. So my very first client ever in my internship was he was either 17 or 18 at the time, and his parents brought him in and said, hey, he's the problem, and here, do something about the issues. And so, but what I had, my supervisor at the time was amazing, and he said, listen, if you really want this teenager to be invested in the therapy, have him pay for at least half of it. Don't get the parents to pay for it all, or he won't be invested. And we did that, and he paid half of his counseling, and he was super invested. It's really teaching kids responsibility and having them pay something to be invested. When you pay something for something, you're more invested in it than if it gets given to you for free. And it was powerful. Of course, yeah, anyway.
What?
I was just going to say, of course, the parents, it's always a family issue. I mean, it's typically also the parents too. There's also a lot of connection, so break down there.
That's what David and Sissy tell us anyway.
Yeah. Don't take your kids in and go, your kid has a problem.
Andy bought me a coffee the other day, by the way.
He did?
Yeah. He wanted me to tell you that some guy bought me a coffee at the coffee shop. I forgot to tell you.
That hashtag needs to say Andy is a stud. I love Andy.
He did.
Okay.
I think we're done.
Speaking of Andy, take permission. If you are in social media at all, takepermission.com. He is super helpful for us.
Basically what this is like, let's just tell you about all our favorite people.
Yeah.
Facebook Live.
What it is it's teaching people to be human. I want to talk about the people in our lives who encourage us, who pour into us, and then also the people we're pouring into and serving. Community, teaching kids to be human is all about that community and surrounding ourselves with that community. So don't be afraid to reach out as a family to have that hashtag that I said about. You have your Pauls up top, you have your Barnabases across here, and you have your Timothys down here that you're pouring into. And if you're a family, by the way, who's pouring into, I read that earlier, if you're a parent who is, or your family who's pouring into more than you're being poured into, more than you are being poured into, take a step back. Yeah, pouring out rather than being poured into. Take a step back, because we can't give out of exhaustion. You can't give from an empty tank. And where I experience it the most, the people who suffer the most when I'm that way are her and those two precious kiddos upstairs. So that's who usually feels the brunt of it. So make sure you're being poured into. And
I think, you might need to seek out those 3 spots. Because I think it requires intentionality, because you have to get yourself around those people, And some of ours don't even live locally. We've moved a lot. There you go, Andy. Yeah.
Oh, Andy.
But finding them, and part of it, I will say, our podcast has kind of become for us putting those people on the podcast so we can talk to them, so that you can hear from them, like Bob and Maria Goff. I'm sure if you guys have read Love Does or Love Lives Here by them, but just surrounding yourself by those people who can pour into you,
who live, love, and lead well. And
to do it.
And that's the heart behind the podcast, is interviewing people who live, love, and lead well, and allowing them to pour into us so that they can pour into you, and making those available. So that's the power of this. So we love you too, Andy. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay.
we are going to go hit the sack. That means bedtime. Because it's Central Time here in Nashville.
Do you ever say that?
I don't know. It's like my Pennsylvania roots coming out. I mean, you know, the Sam Hill and the... I'm going to go red up my room now.
That one makes no sense to me.
You're so hard
Do you know what that is?
Okay, so...
I'm going to go red up
bought
my
those
room.
2 books today. So...
Oh, Love Does and Love Lives Here? Oh.
Listen to that podcast episode because I listened to it over and over again because it's like... We were camping, and every time we started to complain about the camping, I'm like, what would Bob and Maria Goff be doing right now? Like, how would they be approaching this camping trip?
It's not what would Jesus do. It was, what would Bob and Maria do?
So,
don't tell them that. They wouldn't like that.
So they wouldn't like that. So, what was I going to say? Oh, so just, like our Facebook page there, because we're doing podcasts and blog posts and that kind of thing. So, they'll constantly come up there, and we will answer any questions that we weren't able to get to in the comments section over the next couple of days. We'll do our best to get to those, and we'll make a couple of posts there for the different links that we talked about tonight. So thank you guys for tuning in so much, and teach your kids to be human this weekend. Go have fun, get outdoors, have fun as a family. We just really encourage that. I want to pray for each of you. God, thank you so much for all the families tuned in tonight. We pray, God, that their children would come to know, love, and serve you with all of their hearts. Teach us as parents what it means to be human so that we can pass that on to our kids. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys soon.
Bye.